I'm Chanttel Warren. I am a native of Ypsilanti, Michigan. I am a full-time mom right now. I also am a business owner. I have 2 kids with another bundle of joy on the way. I've been married for 11 years. I graduated from Ypsi High. My elementary school was actually Cheney, which no longer exists, but so I went to elementary school at, and then also I went to Perry for preschool and kindergarten.
And then you can just say the title of the book.
And the title of the book is Ladder to the Moon by Myers Sotoro, NG, and is illustrated by Yuyi Morales. Ladder to the Moon. One cool evening, Suhaila asked her mama, "What was Grandma Annie like?" "She was like the moon," her mother replied. "Full, soft, and curious. Your grandma would wrap her arms around the world if she could." Mama gave Suhaila a hug. "You have Grandma Annie's hand," she said. Later, Suhaila lay in her pajamas, the moonlight coming through her open window. She looked at her hands, front, side, and back, and wondered what else had she gotten from her grandma. As the night deepened and the crickets grew loud, Suhaila wandered and waited. It seemed like something was about to happen. Then, as though in answer to her wondering, a golden ladder appeared at the edge of the sill. There, right on the lowest rung, stood Suhaila's grandmother, her silver-bangled arms outstretched and tinkling. "Do you want an adventure, my dimpled child?" Suhaila nodded twice, the second time more certainly. Then she tossed herself out of the bed like a tumbleweed and ran into the window. Together, step by step, they climbed that ladder and the path carved by the moon's glow. From the top rung, Grandma Annie jumped to the moon first. She let herself grow wider and wider, wider than the biggest crater. Then Suhaila jumped too into Grandma Annie's soft, waiting lap. Grandma Annie wrapped her arms around Suhaila's chest, taking the shiver out of the child. The two looked back toward Earth, and Suhaila tried to be brave about feeling so far from home. "What fun," said Annie. "What now?" said Suhaila. "Listen," said Annie, "listen. The moon is a great place, it's true, but the songs of the moon are plenty. Some are plain and some fancy, but Suhaila listened to them all, and through listening, she knew more than she had known before. With each new song, she smiled and felt stronger, until the edges of her smile nudged her Grandma Annie, and they too knew each other completely. Sometimes a smile is strong enough just to do that. "I hear other voices," Grandma Annie said then. Together, they gazed down at the earth below. A 50-foot wave was sweeping from the ocean to the land, and through swirling waters, swimmers struggled up toward the surface. "Kick hard," Annie encouraged them. "Swim." Tilting her head toward her granddaughter, she asked, "Shall we invite them to join us, little one?" "Maybe. We have lots of room," Suhaila responded. Annie nodded and let her voice drip down. "Come dance and get warm, babies," Annie urged. And when the next giant wave crested, all the children leaped high like flying fish. Suhaila and Annie caught them by their fingertips and pulled them up to the moon. Draping scarves around their shoulders, they swung the children round and round until they all laughed again, loud and again long. Then Grandma Annie paused and whispered, "I taste other troubles." Suhaila tasted the air, too, and through tasting, she knew more than she had known before. On the ground below, 2 sisters climbed down 2 tall towers that trembled and swayed on quaking soil. "Hang on tight," Annie urged. When the earth stopped shaking, Annie and Suhaila watched the sisters wipe dust from their faces and stick out their tongues to catch some soft rain. "Come bathe and drink with us," Annie invited them. "Will they know what to do, Grandma?" Suhaila asked. "Do they know how to get here?" "Don't worry, honey," Annie reassured her. "They're stronger than they realize." Sure enough, Suhaila watched the sisters weave a shimmering spiral and began to climb. Grandma Annie embraced the young women at the landing. Together they scrubbed themselves clean in falls of mist and drank sweet moon dew from silver teacups. When the sisters were refreshed, they spoke to Annie and Suhaila. There is still so much to do. There are fires to be tended, gardens to be weeded, and kapok trees to be seeded. We'll work together, Annie promised. We'll throw in our hearts and minds and work with our hands to make the land a little more kind. And for sure they would. Together they build bridges and buildings and bonds between people. Looking back at Earth, Grandma Annie spoke again. I feel faith moving the air down there, she said. They're praying. For what? Asked Suhaila. For one another and for us, Annie told her, and to make the fighting stop. Settling down her teacup, Suhaila stood and felt it then, and through feeling knew more than she had known before. Looking past the golden ladder, she spotted people whose hands pointed upward from a synagogue, a temple, a mosque, and a steepled church. One by one, every person was finding his or her own path to the moon, each path connecting with the others in hope's massive streams. The moon crew was getting large now. Everyone sat and traded stories about courage in canyons and discoveries in the desert, stories about people who had lost their languages, and stories about the poor and powerless. All these people who need us are people just like you and me. Do you see? Asked Annie after the last tale was told. Suhaila watched her eyes and did see, and through seeing, knew more than she had known before. When Suhaila and Grandma Annie looked down again, they saw a baby boy being born from the center of a stalk of corn. A frail great-grandmother left her cliffside home, straightened her stooped spine, and became strong again, just long enough to help the baby take his very first step. Then Grandma Annie watched as Suhaila, all by herself, reached out and took the great-grandmother's hand, helping her onto the ladder. Together they climbed, one of them old and one still quite new. All the boys and girls on the moon, all the men and women, were now part of the moon's hum. The silhouettes could be seen from far below and gave a feeling of plenty to those who had little. Their dancing movements gave feelings of freedom to those who were trapped in small spaces. Those who had been fighting stopped, and when they heard the moon's song and saw its light filling nooks and streams. Eventually, Suhaila turned to her grandmother and again nodded twice. Grandma Annie's nose twitched and her lip trembled with love. I suppose it's time for you to go back. Yes, said Suhaila. Mama misses me, I'm sure. Will you be okay? Oh, yes, little pumpkin, Annie replied. I'm so happy that we had this time. With a snuggle and a smooch, they parted. Looking back just once, Suhaila slid down, moving straight into her bed. She sat for a quiet half moment, feeling proud for having helped others heal, for having helped others learn to move forward and upward and around. Together, those of us left on earth would plant seeds in soft soil. Grandma Annie would send tides to nourish them and weave a net of love around us all. Mama, I'm home, Suhaila called out into the hallway. Mama, I met her. I'm in here, baby. Come, tell me everything. Ladder in the Moon.